Hey, so I've previously covered Discord.js button collectors, and now it's time for message collectors. So what even is a message collector? It's basically an event listener that you set up with specific conditions. Once a message meets that specific condition, the collector lets you know so that you can handle that message. To better help you understand, I'll be creating a very simple guess the word minigame where users can run a slash command to start the game, and then they will have 10 seconds to guess a word from an array. If they correctly guess the word, we'll stop our message collector and let them know that they won. And if they don't get the correct word in time, we'll stop the message collector and let them know that they lost. Now, if you don't already have a Discord.js project, I'll have a link down below to the starter files that I'm using for this video. Anyway, let's get started by creating a file within our commands folder, and I'm going to be calling this guess.js. Now, the command handler that I'm using requires me to export an object from my command file, which will have the data property as well as a run method, which is a run function. And this function will be called whenever the command is executed. So the data property is going to be the structure of our command, which is going to be really simple. It's going to have a name, which is going to be set to guess, and the description, which I'm going to set to guess the word. Now at the top, I'm going to define a variable called words, which is going to be an array of different strings. So these are the choices that we're going to give the user to guess from, and then they will have 10 seconds to basically guess the word. So this run function will have interaction, which is going to be the interaction that is triggered when a slash command is executed. This function is also going to be asynchronous because we want to use a wait inside of it. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do is add this comment right here, which is going to give me IntelliSense for this interaction object. So now if I try interaction dot, you can see that I have a bunch of options that I would not have if I did not add this comment. So anyway, the first thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a variable called answer. And this is going to be a random choice from this array of words. So to pick a random choice, I'm going to use the words array, and then we're going to use an index. So this index has to be a random number. So we're going to say math.floor and then math.random multiplied by the amount of words in the array. So this answer will be a random string from within this array. So now let's go ahead and reply to the user, telling them that the game has started. So this is really simple. We can tell the user await interaction.reply, and within this, we can say game started, guess a word from the following list. And then we're going to have two lines, and then we're going to concatenate another string, which is going to be words.join, and we're going to join the words using a new line. Let's save this for now, and let's run our bot and see what we get. Okay, so it says edited command guess globally. That's because I already had a guess command registered. So it's a different description, which is why it's gone ahead and edited it automatically. Anyway, going over to Discord, I can try to run the guess command. And as you can see, it says game started, guess a word from the following list. And then we have all the words from within this array. Now, of course, it's not actually listening for messages from us, but the way this is intended to work is once the bot replies with this message, it's going to create a collector. This collector is going to be listening for a word, and that word is going to be this answer variable right here. So let's go ahead and create our collector. Now, the collector is actually really simple to create. Let's go ahead and create a variable called collector. And to create a collector, we need to use a channel object. Now, of course, we have a channel object, which is inside our interaction object. So we can say interaction.channel.create message collector. Now we're going to pass in an object. So inside this object, the first thing that we can do is we can go ahead and set our conditions. As you remember, I want this collector to only be triggered when this answer was successfully sent within that channel. So the way we're going to do that is we can create a property called filter, and we're going to set this to a function, and this function will resolve to a Boolean. Now this function actually has the message object as the parameter, and what we can do with this is we can say message.content exactly equals to answer. So this collector will now only be triggered when the message content exactly equals to the answer variable. Now, something you may not realize is this collector can also be triggered outside of the current channel. So let's also go ahead and add an AND operator and also check for the channel ID. So we're going to say message.channel ID must exactly equals to interaction.channel ID. Now for our collector to be triggered, the message content must exactly equals to an answer, and the message channel ID also must equals to the interaction channel ID. Now, if you remember at the start of the video, I said that we're going to be setting a time limit of 10 seconds. Of course, we don't have that here, but it's really easy to implement. We can create another property called time, And this is going to be the amount in milliseconds that we want to set for this collector. So in this case, I want this collector to run for 10 seconds. So I'm going to set this to 10,000. And don't worry about the underscore. That's just to make it more readable by developers. It doesn't actually affect the number. So 10,000 in milliseconds, that's 10 seconds. So now the collector is going to be running for 10 seconds and it's going to be on the lookout for this filter right here. Okay, so now we have the collector created, but how do we actually handle the message? Like how do we reply to the message and also end our collector? Well, the way we can do that is we can use event listeners on this collector object. So we can say collector.on, and then we have a bunch of events that we can use. The one that we're looking for is collect, which basically means this collector collected a message which meets this condition right here. So in this case, of course, we have message as the parameter, so we can handle the message. And what we can say is message.reply, and we'll say you correctly guessed the word. But what if the user didn't actually guess the word correctly? Well, the timer will run out after 10 seconds, but how do we tell them that the timer actually ran out? Well, we have another event that we can use on the collector. So we can say collector.on, and this event name is end. So within the function, what we can say is interaction.channel.send, and we're going to be sending a message within the channel that the command was executed, and we're going to say no one guessed the word correctly. The answer was, and then we can of course go ahead and pass in the answer. Now in theory this should work, but there is a slight problem with it. Let's go ahead and run the command and I'm going to show you what the problem actually is. So back in Discord, I'm going to try to run the guess slash command. And now it says the game has started. So let's go ahead and try to guess the word. Oh, there you go. First try. We correctly guessed the word. Now the problem comes in after 10 seconds. It basically says no one guessed the word correctly. And the reason for that is pretty obvious. The timer ran out, so the end event was triggered. We're not actually checking if the person correctly answered this. So what we can do is after we reply to the user that they have correctly guessed the word, we can go ahead and stop this collector from collecting any more messages. So we can say collector.stop, and this is a method, so make sure you call it. And let's save and try to run it again. So let's go ahead and try to guess the word. There you go, we got it first try again. It says you correctly guessed the word, but we have another problem. We once again get the message, no one guessed the word correctly. Well, the reason why we're getting this message is because when we stop the collector, the end event was also triggered. So the way we can avoid this is we can create a variable up here called answered, and by default, this is going to be false. But before we stop the collector, what we can do is we can set answered to true. So now inside this end event listener, what we're going to do is we're going to check if answered is false. Then only we're going to go ahead and send this message. So I'm going to cut this and I'm going to say if not answered, then only we're going to go ahead and reply. So let's save this file and try to run our bot once again. Back in Discord, let's try to run the guess slash command once again. And I'm going to try once again. Okay, so we got it second try, and as you can see, it says you correctly guessed the word, but it does not give that second message saying that no one correctly guessed the word. And the reason for that, again, pretty obvious. We use a variable to check if we correctly answered. If a user has answered correctly, then of course it's not going to go ahead and reply. So that's how you can create message collectors in Discord.js. If you'd like to learn how to create button collectors, check out this video where I go over exactly how to do that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.